Today, I literally just got finished coming from the setup from where I uh, set up for giving supplies out and things like that. Uh, the reason why I titled that January 17th, 2023 is for a couple of reasons. Yeah, it looked really dark. It looks so dark out here. Because it's four, not five, four. But yeah, I really wanted to put that on at January 2023 because a lot of people don't get to see what I see, or they don't believe that I'm out here because most people say she's like a thief in the night. If she is, she's like a thief in the night. Yeah, I really am. The reason why I'm out here at certain times because I know what times it is. I've been homeless before, so I know where to go. I know where I can be of help to people. Um, and so yeah, duh. Uh, and a lot of people out here, they do, although they do a lot of work. Some people will do a lot of work and aid and help a lot of people, but you see more publicity than anything, and that's okay if that's gonna help fund and do his job, which is to help provide for the needs of people. That's great. But from my standing, I have learned to do things a little bit quieter. Um, and it has not hindered my life at all. As a matter of fact, it has made things a lot easier because for one, I'm able to deal with the clients. I'm able to deal with the clients and I'm able to deal with the people that I deal with on the street without having the extra, and they know that I'm not coming there for show. They really know that, so then their guard is down. They're able to trust me. They're able to relax around me, and that's something that I want I want to keep because during this time and age, there are a lot of people that take advantage of people, let alone people who are at a super disadvantage as being homeless. Um, might have to make a story about some of the freedoms of being homeless because people have no idea. But I mean, it's still hardships and disadvantages because you don't have a home, you don't have a covering, and a lot of things go with that. So, uh, yeah, yeah. Um, my voice feels so groggy today. Feels really groggy today. Um, and I really had no. I didn't. I wanted to go back and drop off my dog, but I was like, she needed to get her walk in. She's white. Where did she go? There she go. Yeah, she had to get her walk in, and I was like, this can be a great time and a teachable moment. And so when I was out here, y'all see it's quiet in the mug. These are the best times. Well, these are the best times to go to sleep, but just be peering up, And believe it or not, most people think that homeless people they just sleep and they just doing all this other stuff all kind of types of day. Most homeless people are up. Most homeless people are up by freaking 5:36. You have some that might have medications or something that makes them kind of groggy, but even then, they're usually up around. They're usually up around this time, unless you have a pattern of being on the street at certain hours. I know people are like, dang, that's kind of messed up. It's certain hours that are a lot safer than others. I won't go into detail with that because one thing I've known is privacy really is key in order to um, help certain individuals. You wanna get people in and help them get into stable housing and things like that. But while they're here, you don't want to bring any extra. Um, any extra problems or troubles to them. And so uh, that I won't I won't give out either. I might have to make another class about that. But um, shoot, yeah. So anywho, I'm gonna tell y'all what happened while I was setting up. So as I'm setting up, and this is mind you, before I get and start talking about this, I know some people think it's very harsh, but this is the true reality. There are a lot of people that are dealing with homelessness. A lot of these people don't have mental illness, but if you stay out here long enough, it can create some some definite mental tension. It'll definitely create some mental tension, and you have to recalibrate. You have to recalibrate your brain. So I'm gonna say that. So as I was getting up and getting set up and all this other good stuff, I ran across this lady, and she had a kid. She had a kid with her, and the kid couldn't have been more than 2 months old, y'all. Had to be 2 months. And so when you see that and you working in this field, you have a legal obligation if they're in, danger, if they're clothed, so the baby was clothed, and so I'm asking her these questions because I'm like, dang, it's kind of sad because you don't want to interrupt and separate people from, or separate families apart or anything like that. I'm all about family preservation, period. But not at the expense of a little one. And so, she gets there and she talks about um, how they have a place, but they don't have, access, or they don't have resources yet. They have a case manager, but they haven't gotten the resources. The baby needs formula, all this other stuff. And so that's something that I don't do. Like, I don't deal with formula. I don't deal with babies. I honestly deal with adults when I'm dealing with my ministry work outside. When I'm dealing with stuff outside, I am dealing I'm dealing with adults. Maybe if I deal with some children, usually they're like walking age, young adult, teenager. You do see a lot of that here, uh, especially because of a lot of people. I'm just gonna put it flat out. A lot of people here are on drugs. Uh, the ratio to people that that have used drugs in this area that I live in is very high. It's very high for its population. Very much high. Not only that, this society now, this generation has just approved like as if it was okay and not thinking about the ramifications or the consequences that come behind it. And so uh I'm sitting there talking to her. I can't, do anything with the child because the child is covered. The child doesn't look malnourished, but this is what she's saying, and it's the middle of the night. So it's just like, okay, you just put a little inquiry and just, okay. And you do, and you try to help them the best way you can. And so one of my things was, some people were like, oh yeah, you can go call the other street ministries, this and that. And I'm sitting here like, okay, well, based off of my background and my knowledge of what I've learned, a lot of those people, they don't have the background that I have. Even though they have a lot of experience dealing with the homeless, doesn't mean that they're good for this particular issue, dealing with a child and getting needs and things like that. So I went and started sending emails early in the morning to people I know I can get some kind of response from. Um, and I know some of them aren't going to see it until this morning. That's cool, but I just wanted to do what I needed to do on my part. Um, and so there was another group. There was another group of individuals that I guess they just started doing walks out here because there really is a lot of homeless people. If you don't see them like now, because it's the beginning of the year, a lot of things been helped. And when you, like I said, sleeping hours, this is really imperative. I don't want to have to be careful with this, but you know which side you know is when to take cover. You know when to take cover. So, um, yeah. uh, but one of the groups were out and they're like, "How could you not go and help this person? How could you do this? How could you not do that?" And I'm sitting here and I'm like, "Oh, you have no idea." I just wanted to laugh because I'm like, first of all, we don't have 24-hour stores anymore. I don't think anyone has 24-hour stores anymore. Okay, we don't have those. Okay. So there's no way I can get her any kind of formula. It's the middle of the night. Although I don't have a problem being out at different times of night, there are some families, most families are in, and they're sleeping. They're sleeping. Um, the only resource that I could give her, which she didn't want to go, is to the ER, and they have like certain little stands, formula, things like that. But other than that, I know that it was out of my hands as far as at this moment. And they were just like saying all kind of crazy stuff, and I just had to laugh. I had to laugh, y'all, because I've noticed something. People who are new or who just getting their feet wet, and this is myself included, I've learned you have a lot to say until you get there and you see all these extra problems that come across that they don't that you haven't learned, that people don't teach you about. They don't teach you about the whole true public safety. They talk about, going in dangerous spots and looking out for people, but they don't tell you about spacing yourself and knowing the distance and having those backgrounds, having that familiarity with law enforcement. Now people talk about, oh no, I don't want to have this, this kind of help. Yes, I want them to trust me, but understand, understand at the end of the day, if someone thinks that you have more than what they have, and they feel like, even if you're not, and you are having it taking it from them, and you have access to, they will find a way. They will find a way to take it from you. They will find a way to get it by any means necessary, even if that means harming you. You know, they don't teach you the things that I learned. They don't teach you about how some people, and I don't want to say like, oh yeah, or everybody's ganging up on me or anything. They don't teach you about how the mind works. Sometimes when we go out and we're a new organization, they'll say, oh yeah, well the other organizations say, we're not competing, we're glad it's more, the work is many but the laborers are few. They always say that, but they don't tell you how the mind really works. When they see people jumping off and they're going into their craft, and then they're getting funding and they're getting extra, it looks like they're getting extra help. They're just getting, a push to move forward. And these people have been in here, working diligently. Not saying that they were slacking, they were working diligently. 9, 10, 15 years doing this work. And you come in and you got a finger lift of experience and time in, but you're moving mountains because God has ordained you to do that. Not understanding, they're not even thinking about or taking a seat back and comprehending, saying, okay, well, this is my position. I'm supposed to do this for the next generation, or the next person to come. They're not thinking about that, and how in retaliation, these people will try to motivate and move people to not be service, or manipulate them to not get the necessities that they need. Y'all, I've seen that, and I've been on this street doing this for 3 years. This since 2020, okay, and just seeing that, and y'all seen that through some of these videos. That's why I don't make this a monetized channel because I want y'all to see everything for the nitty gritty for what it is. Y'all see me put blankets on people. Y'all see me walking, doing all this stuff. Y'all see me. And so, the proof is in the pudding. But this is what I wanted to emphasize, that sometimes it doesn't take a lot of the publicity and the lights and the sometimes in order for somebody to shift, it takes one person. It takes that calm heart. It takes that personal time for emphasis. Come on. It takes that personal, that one-on-one touch. It really does. And I'm not saying that, the financial part, because it's definitely key. I wouldn't be able to go out here and do this just on my salary alone, even though I try my best, because I will cut down my expenses. Y'all know I always try to cut down my expenses, not just for myself, but just to help someone else. But I do get help. I do get help from supporters and people who stand by the cause. And I've learned, like I said, I've learned that there are many places that really help without, come on, come on, girlie, without, without even being fully noticed. I won't say that because it is a business. When you're dealing with a company, usually they want some kind of you know, I won't say kickback, but they want some type of recognition if they're, writing off stuff for your non for profit. And that's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong at all with that. Okay, that's business. But I have learned to make moves being quiet. I have learned to not be so showy. And sometimes it makes me kind of sad because it's like, why do I have to downplay myself? It is, people, it is so necessary because you do not live in a world where, especially in this day and age, we live in a world of entitlement. We live in a world of entitlement, and I don't want anybody to play down their accomplishments because I've done that before too. However, we live and this has been going on for years. We live in a society, we live in a place, we live in an area where when people see you elevating, or they think that you have um they think that you have I don't want to say one up, but when they think that you have something to something that is very powerful, or something important to give, they will try to attack you. They will try to attack you because they feel like it can only be one. It can only be one shining object in the room, instead of saying it's many. And if we put our dynamics together, people always talk about that, but we in real life that doesn't happen, and it automatically does not register in our brains that way. It automatically does not register. And so um we have to learn that. I had to learn that the hard way myself. You see me in freaking magazines. You can see me in talking on boards. You can see me talking on television, all that other stuff. But I will tell you this: it can save your life. I promise you, it has saved me a lot of heartaches. It has saved me um a lot of unnecessary conversations. Because a lot of people want to have a lot of short talk when they think that you have something. That's one of the things that they can't beat you. Then they gotta go pretend that they like you and imitate you and have short, unnecessary conversations that's not productive, just to say that they've been around you. It saves you from that. It saves you from that. So I've learned how to um, accept it for what it is, and um, move on with my life about like with it. Um, what else? Um, oh yeah, so that was kind of about. Excuse me, y'all. That was kind of about it for that one. Y'all see how they did all these like murals? So, yeah. Any hoot. Um, yeah. So I learned that, and then just going through and they had that organization that was telling me all this and was saying all this. Like I said, I was laughing because it was like four of them, and it's like one of me outside today. Usually it's three of us. Usually on a good day, probably about eight. But there are a lot of people behind me. There are a lot of institutions um, that support this ministry. There are a lot of organizations that do it, and personal groups as well. And like I said, there are people who are really lining up to go and do it. That's what I've learned. I've learned, and I haven't lacked at all. If anything, like I said, I've gained. I've gained so much knowledge. And another thing, when people don't think that you have a bag, or they don't think that you, and I don't have a bag, y'all. I definitely don't have a bag. I would like to have a bag, but I don't have a bag. But when they don't think that you have anything, you have less stress. You have less stress. Let me tell y'all. If I can tell y'all this time and time again, like I got a great uncle right now, been on the Forbes list. This was 2009. Still in that like the income has increased. Still lives in the state that he's in. And how you would think how he dresses and how he acts, you would never you would never think that. Now people know who he is, so they know. But even before, and he makes it an emphasis on it. I remember when I was younger, uh, he used to tell us about that. How we dress and how we act, and don't um, don't try to jump for people just for money or attention or anything like that, because that can always change, and you have to remember that can always change. Someone who has direction and driven goals, they can out they can outdo someone who has a need for attention, and they have a fan base without that worth ethic. They can do that. It might seem like that. And one of the biggest, I thought about that about. I know y'all like she just talked about how she outside and how she was setting up and everything, but this does go hand in hand, and I had to learn this. I had to learn this for myself. You have to be diligent in things, because with time, everything reveals itself. Everything reveals itself usually within time. You'll hear people saying that, oh, they're doing one thing, they're doing something else. And then they'll be doing one thing 1 minute, and the next minute they're gone. You know, when you're dealing with anything that you want to have growth, it takes time. So you don't want to really rush into things. It takes a little bit of time to understand the knowledge, to get everything down, to focus. Y'all know, before I was doing this, before I started, I had this vision, and well, God told me that I was going to be, serving people, and dealing with people on the streets, because of how my attitude is, and how a lot of people will reject me because of how I dress, how I talk, how I act, and things like that. I'm just not the average typical person. I'm okay with that, And I know y'all like the average typical. I'm not the average typical black girl. I'm not the average typical, you know, um, um, person who is going to work at a corporate job. I can put that persona on for a little bit, but it's not gonna work. I'm always, and I try to be authentic as possible, but that's not it. So I'm a heart driven person. Um, Most of my fuel comes that way, and so I've learned. Uh oh. I've learned that. So, but when I first got an answer, a vision of it, and I was literally sleeping when I first got my first vision of it. It was a um, it was a great thing, but it showed me how it was going to be outside working. It did not come to me. I did not get into the field until years later. Okay, and then after that, I was under, I worked under somebody, and this free of charge. See, when your heart is really into something, you're gonna do it regardless. People think like, oh yeah, you're gonna get the bag automatically. No, it's not. That doesn't happen that way. I wish people would stop telling you the dumbness. But I literally had to do what my passion is, do what God called me to do, which was serve, his people while working. So there was no gain for me. If it was a gain for serving, and doing what God told me, but there was no physical gain that you're seeing, like, oh yeah, I'm coming up, I'm getting, free stuff. No, I was none of that. None of that at all. Matter of fact, some of the people that I was serving, when I was serving while I was through my mess. And so they would have way better things than me while I'm sitting over here working really, really hard to do it. Some people would like, okay, why are you doing this? Not understanding that this is what God has called me to do. I'm in the right field. I'm right in alignment. I'm right in alignment with it. I just have to go through this process because when you're dealing with anything, you have to go through a process. Life is with ups and downs. It's with ups and downs, and um, people really get misconstrued on it. They get really messed up with it. They do a lot of stuff. They do a lot of stuff, or they think it's just gonna happen cookie cutter overnight. And I used to think that sometimes, but I've had experiences before to understand that things like this don't happen overnight. Almost everything that I've had to do, or anything that I've gained accomplishments over, or any kind of accolades, it usually dealt with um, taking time. It dealt with time. Um, that was real gross. I don't even know how I didn't have that. So, and that's the same way when you're dealing with, especially with people in ministry, because there's also times when I have to really dip into my pocket and help when I don't have enough funding. People think about the nonprofits, the big organizations, how they go through that stuff. I'm learning that firsthand. When they don't have it, when they do have it, it's good. Sometimes it's in a surplus, it's in abundance. But a lot of those times it's not. I've worked in freaking arenas. I worked at the largest shelter in my area, and it was like a 88 bed facility. I think it's more than that now because they have one for the men and one for the women. But they also house like that's for short term, long term. No, it's got to be more than that because it was one, two, three. There's like 128. So it's 128 because it was short term, long term, and then the homeless population. You got about 230 to about 500. I know that's a huge jump, but it depends on the weather. So you're gonna have usually no less than about 230, 250, people there that are just getting a night's rest. They're on a cot. And I remember how people was like, oh yeah, well they got all these millions of dollars. How are they, how are they broke? How are they this? Well, okay, if you think about it, so you got all these people who are there in different phases of walks of life. They're short term, long term. You got to deal with that. We also dealt with the children. We also dealt with the children and the families that were connected with it, because you can't cut off poverty. You can't cut off any of that if you don't deal with the family unit. If you don't deal with the issues of the environment, which is the family unit. Okay, they're around. We can talk about the physiological, the social economic things that go on that's outside of the family unit, but most importantly, you have to deal with the things that are right in front of you. Okay, so they're out of that environment. They're in a shelter. They're in a safe place. It's a clean, very upscale shelter, y'all. They did do their work on that. However, you're in here and you're away from all the elements that have caused you to be here. So you have no other choice, because you killed all the diseases and the parasites. And when I say the diseases and the parasites, it's the mindsets, the culprits, the negative thinking, the hardships that you had to deal with. You're away from that for months. Sometimes some people are there for years. because if they're in a longer term programming and they're dealing with addictions or some kind of things like that, not too much mental health, hopefully they'll get better on that. That they're there. You're there. Then you got short term. They're there from what? Anywhere between 3 months. They say 6 months to a year, year and a half. But I've seen it as short as 3 months, and long as 2.5 years. And so you're dealing with people who are gonna need usually 3 meals a day, because if there are any type of programs, they have to re-stimulate their mind to go back out. They have to put them back in, take them out, revamp their minds, re-educate, um, and then send them back into the population. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with the other hardships with the family unit. Family unit needs uh, some of the children can be affected, and they usually are if they don't have support helping them. A lot of those people end up in those hardships because they had to do um, some things that a lot of us um, wouldn't dream of doing because of lack of education, because of lack of resources. If you don't have, if there's no jobs coming around in a certain amount of a radius, and they're not hiring you because of how you look and which demographic area you come from, and your only option to make money is to do something crazy, and then that's going to end up that's going to affect your livelihood. That's going to affect the people that are around you, your children that are looking, that whole dynamic. And so it's a whole cluster of things that they had to do, that we had to do, that they continuously do, and that I had to do, not only at that facility but at other facilities. And it it was mind boggling, like how people can just forget that quick, like how life really is. They'll talk about, oh my goodness, my light bill is this, my light bill is that, and have the money to afford it, and to actually get it, and to make it happen. But then they forget about the people who are stuck there. And I know people are like, well, then they can, they go in and they serve their time, because I've had people to say that they serve their time, they get out, and then, well, listen, if you got any kind of baggage that way, it excludes you from a lot of jobs. Most places that it baffles me, y'all. It baffles me. Most places that um, actually um, would hire these people would not hire them, because now they're fellas. Now they're in the judicial system, and that is a target. And if you're I'm not gonna say that it's an easy road, because it's not, especially if someone has turned their life around, and they want to keep on that narrow road, and it's already tough. They know about the consequences, but it's very difficult for someone who wants to do that after they went down a opposite road or path, and let alone not including the mental stimulation that comes around it. Because now you have a renewed mindset. But what if you're dealing with mental illness? What if you're dealing with, not even that, resentment? A lot of people deal with resentment because they're like, dang, I did this, I should have did that, and they're still stuck in that instead of letting the past be the past. So, yeah, but it was a lot of stuff that I had to learn. And I was so grateful for having that opportunity to do that. Now, it came with a lot of other things that I didn't wish on nobody, y'all. I was called everything but a child of God in some of those things. People would try to turn around, act as if I wanted to take things from people. They wanted to, say real bad things. Like she's only doing this because she wants attention. She only wants to do this because of this. And I took the bullet for that. I didn't even. When I say I took the bullet for it, I didn't say anything. I had no reason to. It wore me out just dealing with it. The only thing I could do, and I'm so grateful that God allowed me to do it, was just to serve, to learn, and to serve. And it has helped me. It has helped me to develop my character. If you guys haven't watched my things before, my videos, my recordings before, I always talk about, especially earlier, like I want to say 3, 4 years, I always talk about how God was developing my character, because there was a lot of characteristics that I had to deal with. Some of the things that I, would be okay tolerating, I can't tolerate anymore in order to be a better productive adult. And sometimes we don't think about that, but it really is, learning that discipline, not thinking of everything as total black and white, but you also want to understand that you need to have a direction and a goal. And being around people who are not knowledgeable is just as bad as being around people who are unfruitful. So I don't care what nobody said. Being around somebody who is not knowledgeable in a skill, or things that will help you and help your life catapult and get to a better place, is just as bad. It's just as bad as being around uh, people who do toxic things. We don't talk about that, and I had to understand that, y'all. I had to get that, especially yesterday too. Especially yesterday, because you'll think of, oh yeah, well, this is my friend. They're doing this. We're all cool. They're always there for me. Well, guess what? They're still wasting time. They're doing, things that are not helping their growth, helping their bodies, helping their minds, helping them get to a better place in life. Guess what? Guess what? You gotta leave them. You gotta leave them. So, anyhow, I don't want to get off the topic, but I did want to um, share that with you guys. Shoot, they cleaned up really well. Y'all know usually somebody is over here at the library. It's always somebody at the library. But well, they've been sweeping a lot of people away though too. But I say why not? Because that's a safe place. It really is. Uh, but uh, but with that, um, those are some of the things that I've learned. Be disciplined and don't be anxious for everything. Don't be, oh, I gotta go get this, because sometimes God will allow some things to happen and to go through and to shift and to make a change before you walk into, come on, to walk into it. Mm-mm. No, you're not even supposed to be over there. Oh, do not let her go in these little woods over here, because they just throw needles. They'll throw anything. If something, if the police is looking for them, baby, they throwing everything over there. And she don't need to be high. She don't need to be nothing. I might have to make a video of that, of people, doing that. I'm also going to let you guys have some interviews on from people who are actually homeless, and people who have overcame homelessness. And when I say overcame it, I'm gonna say recently, because we always hear about those success stories that happened 10, 20, 15 years ago, and that sounds all good. But what about homelessness today? Because it always changes. Things change, and I will say this: in the vision that I saw with God, I saw you trying to eat that bagel. The vision, come on, the vision that I saw with God is it was so terrifying, but it's happening today, where things were, excuse me, sorry y'all, where things were automated, y'all. When I say automated, it was just like people were losing their jobs to left and right. There were some people who had some really, really, success from a lot of this, but there were a lot of people losing their income, and it was just, it was crazy. So yeah, I know that from that, and seeing what's going on now, that it is what it is. It is what it is. But don't be anxious for it. What God says is going to come. You don't have to do anything else, because He's already made that happen. He's already made that happen. So no one, no entity on earth hell or heaven can change what he has placed. You know what? It's so weird, y'all. I don't know if they got a tower over here, but it felt like my head was just, like a lot of those. I won't even. A lot of those technology little towers. I don't know if they built one over here. If you guys don't know, we are investing to be and you can learn this about any city. We are investing in being a smart city. Um, some people do know that. Well, with that, comes, um, a lot of grants and things like that for extra resources. So when that comes, yeah, yeah, I'll just leave that into itself. But sometimes when you go into the magnetic field and it changes and it feels stronger, tighter, it's usually a tower or something that's a little bit closer. Um, I've learned that. I know that don't go with this, but I've learned that. Well, it can, but I've learned that when I worked at a radio station, about signals and things like that, and the radio station was connected to television and all those things. So it's good to have to be well rounded and have knowledge with that. So, but this video is not for that. It's just somebody take somebody's wheel off, y'all. I can't make this up. This person had their bike over here at the library. Y'all look at it. It has no wheel. They took the wheel off, y'all. They took the wheel. Ezekiel's has no more wheel. Ezekiel, they saw your wheel. Oh, Lord. Ezekiel. Oh, Bill, shut up, Bill. They saw your wheel at the Alley County Library. Okay, make me think that I'm not going cuckoo. So, yeah. Overall, I will tell you this. Overall, as far as the homeless population being served, they really do help people out here. For the most part. It's very limited, of course, because it's still a lot of people. But you get more help than most other places, for sure. If I was in Chicago or in Annapolis or in Gary, you're probably gonna, especially Gary, you're gonna get a cup of noodles. You get 1 meal a day. They don't talk about that. Men and women and children. The meals, they get 1 meal a day if they're in the shelter. Yeah, it gets real. Sometimes they don't have cooked meals unless they're in some kind of, if it's like a day shelter or something like that. Yeah, they'll give them, of course they're going to give them there at a day shelter, because now they're giving them some kind of education. So if they're in, which means to some kind of schooling. So if you're in some kind of re-education or something like that, of course they got to provide meals. So then they're going to give them that. But if you're looking for a job, and then you're back to that 1 meal a day. You're back to that 1 meal a day. And so, yeah, I'm so glad they fixed that doggone wall. Somebody had ran into the wall. I don't understand how you run into the wall, but yes I do. But there. Oh, it is another tower up. I know I wasn't going berserk. So, yeah, but it's always best just to do what you can. Learn as much as you can, but don't get upset when people, feel like you haven't done your best. You got to understand that when you've done your best, that's all that is required. You're not there to impress nobody. You're not there to impress men. You're not there to impress whoever pats you on the back every single weekend, because eventually, listen, if you live long enough, them same people who patting you on the back gonna start cussing you out, or if they don't cuss you out verbally, they're gonna cuss you out physically by trying to disrespect you or tell somebody else that you ain't doing nothing and you ain't about this. Listen, it happens. It happens. So you have to have it in your mind when you're dealing with anything, not only this field, especially with this field, but not just with this, with everything in life. I had to learn this. You have to. You have to have it in your mind that I'm going to do the best that I can regardless. And there are going to be people. What a this dude coming from, but I don't even care. Seem a little weird. Yeah, that's real weird. Real suspect, dude. Let's go this way. Yeah, but there are going to be people who are not going to respect you. There are going to be people who are going to think less of you or thinking that you are not doing enough. And you got to remember, be okay with that. That's their words. It don't matter. Even when you get to this point, because I had to get to this point in my life, like, dang, I used to be like, okay, well, I'm going to play it down, because I still would play things down for people to save myself. Listen, Daniel did that when he had to go through the enemy's camp, and he was looking for refuge, dealing with his son. Now that's different, But don't. I used to go down and be like, okay, well, I just tone down myself, permanently, so they can do it. They still gonna have something to talk about. They still are. They still are. If you gave $1 million to somebody else, they're gonna say, well, why didn't you give $1 million to this person? That's how people are. That's how people are. So you have to keep it in your mind and keep it in your headspace and your frame of mind of what you want to happen and what you want your goals to be. So which is what I did today. And I'm so grateful when I look at things and what I've accomplished in 3 years. Starting off with something by myself, what God led me to do, and to do it and to see it. I'm very impressed about what He has led me to do. I'm very impressed of the accomplishments that I have done. Contrary to what other people may say, whether good or bad. And that's the same thing with good. You don't want to overpat yourself. Take some of them accomplishments and say, okay, but you got to have that for yourself. So on that note, I'm going to get off of here, y'all. Hopefully something that's said or done will help you on your journey. Please stay tuned to Journey to Jerusalem. And thank y'all so much. I thank you for every single subscriber that has taken the time to look at these videos. If it has improved your life, you don't have to comment. If it has improved your life, great. Because I know I am not the originator of the words that come out of my mouth. I know that God put that in me. I'm not that dumb to think that, I've been on this journey alone. I'm not that dumb to get up and say, I'm this. If it can help you and you can use it, use it. Use it to better your life. Use it to help others. Because honestly, we don't even own nothing. Most of we try to say, they jocked my style, they did this, you don't own none of that. Somebody created that before you did. You just adapt to that, and you felt like it was your own. You felt like it vibed with you, it got with you. So if somebody else, use this policy or use the words that came out of my mouth to make their lives better, then do that. Do just that. That is the greatest reward that I can get. That's the greatest reward. Not only that I can get, most of all that God can get. That the words that I've said has made an impact in your life to make a incredible and drastic change to help not only yourself, other people, and to better and further advance His word. So on that, I'm gonna get off of here, y'all. Bye. Uh-oh. Spaghetti.